Hello, dear colleagues. My apologies for talking to you over the phone, but apparently my camera wouldn't start or whatever, so we're just waiting to connect the video so that you could see me. Alright, well, the topic of my presentation, the topic which I want to talk upon today is blended learning for preparing students for the Russian national exams in English. And the first thing which I want to talk to you about is not that what we're doing right now, which is emergency teaching, but more what we're going to do afterwards once this emergency teaching is hopefully over. And once it is over, we will face the new reality.
In the classroom, in a regular classroom, whenever a student makes mistakes, you can do something like, you can make a gesture like, well, think about it, like, no, it's over there, think about it again. And when you're doing it online, you can't do this. Well, technically you can, but it's not that effective. So, exhausting video calls, it is difficult for all of us. Unproductive use of time. Whenever you go online, you need to understand that the nature of online lessons, it has to be different from actual communicative lesson which you have in class. And that is imposed by the restrictions of these means of communication and the restrictions of the technology. When you use Zoom, you can use breakout rooms, putting students into different groups, like 3, 4, 5 students per group. But if you do that in a regular classroom, you can walk around and actually peep in and try to hear what the students are discussing in each of these rooms, and you do it naturally and quite fast. When you're using breakout rooms, it might take, well, 30 seconds for you to enter the room, and then another 30 seconds for you to change the room. And are you sure that once you leave the room, the students who are there, are they actually working? How do you make them work even when you are not watching? So these are the questions which you need to address so that to make the productive use of time. Another thing which unfortunately happens to many university students as well as high school students, and especially when they're preparing for the exams, that's overwhelming amount of homework. I don't know how about you, but neither me nor my students like this approach. Firstly, because if that is done at low-tech level, you have to check a lot. Like I need to check something like 200 essays in a week, and that's really exhausting. And I'm happy that I'm checking just the essays, because some teachers are also checking just like workbook printouts or some tests and all that. And it is hard for us, but it's also hard for students because they have this huge amount of homework and they just don't have this experience of chunking this homework into small bits so that they could do it little by little. What they try to do, they hoard on it at the end of the week, trying to stuff into their heads as much as possible in like a couple of hours, or trying to write numerous assignments in an hour or so. And again, we don't like it, but we need to think how can we help them to make a better use of their time. Another thing is more testing than teaching. Well, teaching, it's not, especially language, it's not when students just put ticks or choose a specific form to like open close exercise. Well, it's not, I don't think that's our role as teachers, especially teaching English, which is highly communicative subject, and we need to focus on productive skills. And when we do more testing than teaching, we think that educational process is going. But let's think what happens with the students. They have this huge amount of homework, which is at low level, like they're drilling some sorts of drills, and they just have piles of papers to work with. They want to cheat. And I don't blame them. They don't want to do this work. They don't see the purpose of it. They don't see it as being a teaching or learning moment. For them, that's just menial job, something which they need to perform for no reason. And they try to teach or to cheat. And well, in today's world, if a child or a student wants to cheat, he or she will manage. I mean, well, of course, there are numerous books, numerous English students' books, but they can always find answers online. And if the student wants to cheat here, what he's gonna do, he's gonna find those answers, he's gonna copy them and send them to you. So it makes no sense for them to do that because they're not learning. It makes no sense for you to check this work because you understand it's ridiculous. But we'll do this. But that is not learning. That's just mimicking the learning process by all of the participants. And you need to be aware that this might happen, and you need to think of how you can tackle it. And of course, we have low motivation of students. Well, I'm lucky enough because I'm working with students who are preparing for the Russian national exams. And for them, of course, they are highly motivated. But right now, because of the huge stress and because they have to deal with all this uncertainty, they are getting demotivated. And you need to think of the ways you can keep them motivating. That's what we don't like. So, we've discussed why we don't like it and how can we possibly tackle some of these issues. And now we have this section over here of what we like. And what we like, of course, we like automatic task checking. Well, who doesn't like it? Because we don't have to check numerous amounts of homework every week. And of course, we also like the ability to track students' progress. Like this student did 90% on this test, and that student, he or she did 60% on that test. So obviously there is a progress going on. And we need to use, and what we like using reusable digital materials, so we don't have to prepare over and over again for the class. We've done it once, and these materials stay with us forever. But the one thing which I want to talk to you about a bit closer is tracking of students' progress. We need to decide what the progress is. What is our aim? Do we really want them just to have 90% on an open-close exercise? Or do we really measure success with how successfully they can match the picture with the word? Well, partially, yes, and that would be applicable to any other subject, be that history, social studies, because those subjects, they are heavy in information load. So how you prepare for those exams? You learn a lot of material, but it doesn't work with English because English is a practical skill. Like you can learn all of the dictionary, but it's not gonna help you to speak better or to understand the text better, because to master language, you need to use it constantly in productive skills. It's connected to your cognition, it's connected to your everyday interactions. So, and that is the progress. How effectively students can use the language they know to achieve the goal which they're striving at. In our case, that's a high score at the examination. And in Russian national exam, there are not that many tasks in which you need to, well, just use this basic level of knowledge. Of course, there is grammar, but it's just 1/4 of the exam. But there is also reading, listening, speaking, writing, something of higher order, which we need to prepare them for. And if we only focus on grammar or lower level, it's not going to take us far. All right, so the next one. And there is a solution which we can use to make a more effective use of time. That's flipped classroom. Flipped classroom, that's what we had before we started talking about blended learning. In flipped classroom, what you do, you firstly give students some pre-tasks at home. So they do something at home and they come to class more prepared. In traditional classroom, when you are in class with your students, you try to explain them something, and then you do some lower order tasks. Like you're trying to help them remember something, you're trying to help them understand something, and to apply. And then at home, students should be challenged more, and they often face tasks they are not prepared to carry out effectively. And they need your advice, and they need it now. When they're doing a specific exercise, performing a specific task, there is a very small window for learning, and it happens once they are immersed into the task, once they're working with it. In traditional classroom, what happens? You give them homework, they work with it independently, and then you check it a couple days later. But students, if you check their homework a couple days later, they don't care about their mistakes in that tasks. All they care about is how many points did they get. And that is not learning. So you're missing this crucial learning moment. Whenever a tutor is working with a student and a student makes mistakes, what happens? The tutor comes up to the student and corrects him immediately. So this is a very small window for immediate learning, and you miss it once you give them a lot of homework, which you check later on. In flipped classroom, you give them pre-tasks, so they prepare, they learn material, they can learn grammar, they can learn vocab, they can learn ideas, and they come to classroom prepared. So in classroom, you can focus on higher order thinking skills. You can devote more time to speaking, for example. So what you can do, you can pre-teach vocab, pre-teach grammar, pre-teach ideas, so that they do it at home. That's what they do at home. And you can also use such thing as automatic marking. And for that, when you mark them automatically, they get the results straight away, at all. They just see it and they understand how well they did. And you can also give them immediate explanatory feedback. And it can also be automatic, like you've made this mistake here for this reason, or can you think one more time? It's also possible with the current technology level. And that can be a formative assessment. You can tell your students that this is not done for the grade. This is done for you to improve your skills. And then you can also give them a summative assessment for homework, something more productive, like they need to provide explanations for their own mistakes or for their own use of grammar in specific cases. They can record a conversation, or they can write a short story or an essay for you to check. And then once they come to the class, you have this offline lesson, a very communicative-based lesson, or you can do the same thing online, live. And the benefits are enormous. Firstly, you decrease their cognitive workload, because once they come prepared for the class, they already have some material, so it's easier for them to tackle higher order thinking tasks. You face decreased anxiety, because those students of lower levels, they're always nervous to come to class. And in this case, they know that they know something and they're able to participate in the activities. They are better aware of their own learning. There is more motivation, less teaching. You build their skills effectively, and you can focus on productive skills in class. And how can you prepare those lessons online? You can use Google Classroom, H5P, Zoom, Video Puppet. That's an amazing tool for recording video lectures. You can use Google Forms for creating quizzes with feedback. Not just the feedback like this answer is incorrect, but a more profound feedback, why this answer is incorrect, so that students actually learn. And when, for example, you do something with the grammar, first you can provide them with a pre-recorded video, something short and concise. Then you can give them formative assessment with tips, so they can practice this skill. Then you can give them summative assessment, something that you actually check at home, something more productive. And students can analyze their own mistakes, and they can send you more productive tasks later. Like what I do with my students, it looks more or less like this. So they have preparatory tasks when they need to learn specific grammar and vocab and do some readings on the topic so that they get more ideas. Then they watch a short video, they do formative tasks with tips, like whenever they want to get an advice or a tip, what should be entered in the specific clause, they can hit the button and it will give them this tip. And they then, at the end, for the fourth step, they submit something productive, like an essay to check. That's why I have so many essays to check. And it helps them to learn more effectively for grammar. For vocabulary, you can use flashcards, they can memorize material better, you can give them reading and listening so that to contextualize this particular material so that they learn it within the context. I'm almost done. So these are the flashcards. You can give them ideas, you can ask them to read something online, podcasts, magazines, something enhanced. They can find materials themselves so that they come better prepared for the higher order discussions. And well, here are just the final tips what you can do. Your students should know why they're learning the way they're learning, and that really enhances their experience. You should always give them the clear plan and clear instructions what will happen for like the whole year ahead. And in that way, it decreases their anxiety. And you need to create a uniform learning environment. If you blend it, like after this COVID situation, if you want to take online into offline lessons, you need to use some tasks with their phones in the class. And vice versa, you can give them printed materials to study at home independently, mixing this online and offline into one uniform learning environment. And of course, you need to radiate confidence and positivity, because for them, you're their anchor. You should be really confident in what you're doing, and you should be really happy to see them every time you see them. And that sparkles them and helps them learn more effectively. Alrighty, I guess I've been talking too much, I'm sorry, but I would be really happy to answer any of your questions, of course, if you have any.